The most dangerous wall in the company was not security. It was silent. Nora Vale noticed it at 11:47 p.m. when the office lights had gone dim and the dashboard still glowed like everything was fine. Thousands of complaints sat quietly in the system, each marked resolved. But the pattern on her screen told a different story. Something had not been solved. It had been buried. She worked for a powerful technology contractor that handled public service claims for government agencies and large institutions. The company sold one promise above all others: speed, fairness, and accountability. From the outside, it looked impressive. Clean reports, green charts, automated updates, leadership presentations filled with neat percentages and phrases like service excellence and customer-first innovation. Inside, the truth was messier. The system did not scream when people failed. It whispered, renamed the failure, and moved it into a different folder. Nora was not a troublemaker. She was not dramatic, reckless, or hungry for attention. She was a systems analyst who liked clean data, quiet rooms, and coffee strong enough to count as a warning label. Her job was ordinary on paper: track complaints, compare resolution times, identify weak points, help management understand where people are falling through the cracks. At first, the strange numbers looked like mistakes. A strange category here, a delayed case there, a complaint closed too early, then reopened under another label. But the more Nora looked, the less accidental it felt. Serious cases were being softened. Repeated failures were being split apart. Urgent complaints were being moved into harmless administrative language. A denied claim became pending review. A rejected appeal became customer clarification required. A family waiting for support became a line item that looked solved to anyone reading quickly. That was the first chill. There was no cartoon villain in a dark office, no secret criminal genius, just a machine that made accountability disappear politely. Nora told herself there had to be an explanation. Maybe the labels were poorly designed. Maybe the staff were overwhelmed. Maybe the dashboard was only showing part of the picture. So she started checking old records during lunch breaks, not because she wanted to expose anyone. She wanted to prove herself wrong and go back to normal, but normal refused to return. Every new comparison exposed another quiet contradiction between what the company promised publicly and what the system actually did privately. Some cases had been marked complete within minutes, even though supporting documents showed no meaningful review. Others had been transferred between departments until the deadline expired. It was like watching people get lost in a maze, then watching the maze claim they had safely reached the exit. Nora began keeping a private timeline using approved records she was allowed to access. Dates, labels, internal notes, public claims, policy language. She avoided anything outside legal channels. That mattered. Responsible whistleblowing is not about chaos. It is not about revenge, leaks, or dramatic rebellion. It is about truth, evidence, and restraint under pressure. Her approach was painfully unglamorous. She made spreadsheets. She printed policies. She compared categories. She built a map of how complaints changed as they moved through the company. Some nights, she sat in her apartment with cold noodles beside her laptop, staring at colored rows until the colors started feeling like warning lights. One complaint stayed with her. A single mother had contacted support 7 times about a delayed benefit decision. The system marked the issue as resolved communication, but nothing had actually changed. Nora read the notes twice, then a third time. The language was clean, calm, and professionally empty. It made suffering sound like a paperwork preference. That was when the story became personal, not because Nora knew the woman, but because she realized the database had learned how to erase people without deleting them. The pressure came softly at first. A manager asked why she was reviewing archived cases. Another suggested she focus on forward-looking improvements instead of historical noise. Historical noise. That phrase sat in her chest like a stone. To the company, old complaints were cluttered. To the people waiting, they were still life. Then came the word everyone used when they wanted a problem to become fog: context. Nora was told that context mattered more than raw numbers. Context explained delays. Context explained unusual labels. Context explained why serious concerns looked harmless from above, but inside that building, context often meant something else. It meant, please stop looking directly at the wound. Ask yourself this before the story goes further. When does a broken process become a shield for powerful people? If stories like this help you see how systems really fail, subscribe, not for drama, but for sharper eyes in a world full of polished dashboards. Nora decided to prepare a formal internal report. She knew tone mattered. One wrong word could make people defensive. One unsupported claim could give them an excuse to ignore everything. So she wrote it like an audit, not an accusation. Calm language, clear evidence, no emotional fireworks, just patterns that refuse to behave like accidents. The report showed how complaints were renamed before escalation. It showed how unresolved cases disappeared into neutral categories. It showed how leadership reports improved while customer harm continued. When she submitted it, nothing happened for 3 days. No reply, no meeting, no acknowledgement, just silence, which somehow felt louder than panic. Then the meeting invite arrived. The subject line was ordinary. Follow-up discussion. The room was not. Legal was there. Her director was there. A senior operations manager joined 5 minutes late and smiled too much. They thanked her for her diligence. They said the company valued integrity. Then they explained, carefully and smoothly, why her concerns were incomplete. They said she lacked the full operational picture. They said the categories were complex. They said public service work required nuance, patience, and trust in established processes. Nora listened. She took notes. She watched them talk around the evidence without touching it. Then came the warning disguised as kindness. Pursuing this further, they said, could create confusion. It could affect team morale. It could damage her career trajectory. Career trajectory, another polished phrase, another soft cover for a hard message. That night, Nora did not sleep much. She replayed every sentence from the meeting and wondered whether she had misunderstood the danger or finally understood it too clearly. The twist was bigger than hidden complaints. The system had not failed because nobody saw the problem. It survived because everyone saw only the piece that protected them. Legal saw liability. Operations saw workflow. Executives saw reputation. Middle managers saw performance targets. Customer support saw tickets that needed closing before the clock ran out. Nobody owned the full harm. Accountability had been chopped into pieces so small that no single person had to carry the weight. That was the machine's genius, not secrecy, fragmentation. When responsibility is sliced thin enough, everyone can say, that part was not mine. Nora had a choice. She could accept the warning, protect her position, and become another person who knew enough to be uncomfortable, but not enough to act. Or she could follow the process beyond the company itself. She contacted the official ethics channel first. Then, after receiving another vague response, she used protected reporting procedures to contact an external oversight body. No dramatic leak, no midnight dump of files, no reckless exposure of private data. She submitted organized evidence through legal channels and waited. Her hands shook when she hit send, not because she doubted the documents, but because documents do not protect you from isolation. The next few weeks were strange. Conversations stopped when she entered the rooms. Calendar invites disappeared. People who once joked with her became polite in that frozen corporate way. There is a special kind of loneliness that comes when you tell the truth inside a system that prefers clean silence. Then investigators arrived. Not with sirens, not with flashing cameras, not with dramatic hallway music, just formal requests for records, preserved emails, internal policy documents, and interviews. The building changed overnight. People who used to speak in confident shortcuts suddenly wanted every sentence documented. Managers rediscovered caution. Executives rediscovered memory loss. The company's confidence began to crack under simple questions. Who approved the complaint labels? Who reviewed unresolved cases? Who benefited when the numbers looked better than reality? That last question cut deepest. Because the answer was not one person, it was a chain. Employees followed instructions. Managers chased targets. Executives accepted comforting summaries. Departments protected themselves. The dashboard rewarded closure, not resolution. That is how powerful systems often fail, not with an assisting evil decision, but with incentives that make the wrong behavior feel normal, efficient, and professional. When the findings became public, the company responded exactly as expected. It expressed concern. It promised cooperation. It released a statement polished enough to survive 3 committee reviews, but the damage had already escaped the spreadsheet. Families came forward. Former employees spoke quietly to investigators. Clients demanded independent audits. Regulators expanded their review. Investors began asking questions. Leadership could not answer with green charts. Nora did not celebrate. People expected her to feel victorious. But whistleblowing rarely feels like winning. It feels like grief with paperwork. She thought about the single mother whose case had started to haunt her. She thought about patients, families, workers, and small businesses processed into silence. The reforms came slowly. Complaint categories were redesigned. Escalation rules changed. Independent audits became mandatory. Leadership reports had to include unresolved harm, not just completed tasks. The company created a direct accountability map. Every unresolved issue needed an owner, a deadline, and a record that could not be softened into harmless language. For the first time, senior leaders could not hide behind summaries that only showed what made them comfortable. Was the system fixed forever? No. Systems do not become ethical because someone announces reform. They become ethical through pressure, memory, consequences, and people willing to ask irritating questions. Nora eventually left. She took another job in a smaller organization, one with fewer slogans and better habits. She was quieter after everything, but not broken. She had learned that truth does not need to shout when the evidence is organized. It only needs someone patient enough to keep looking. Her legacy was not that she exposed one company. It was that she exposed a pattern many organizations quietly share. A dashboard can hide suffering. A policy can hide neglect. A process can hide cowardice. A clean report can be the dirtiest document in the room. For students, the lesson is simple. Every metric tells a human story. Learn the tools, but also learn the consequences of how those tools are used. For tech professionals, the warning is personal. Design choices are never neutral. They decide what gets escalated, what gets buried, and who suffers quietly. For business leaders, the message is sharper. If your system only tells you good news, it is not reporting. It is performing loyalty. And for the public, the takeaway is not paranoia. It is awareness. Powerful systems should not rely on heroic insiders to reveal the truth. They should be built so ordinary honesty can survive an ordinary Tuesday. If this story made you think of a system that hides responsibility behind the process, comment carefully below. Keep it responsible, keep it specific, and keep asking the question powerful systems hate most. Who benefits when accountability disappears?